Hey guys, John Odell here again with Alliance Insurance. In today's video, we're going to discuss the topic of your farm equipment. Now, equipment coverage is one of the most important parts of your policy. Every farmer, I don't care if you're from row crop to livestock, you have some sort of equipment and you rely on it every day to ensure that there's no lapse in your operation. So you need to have the proper coverage on all of your equipment. All types of items are covered under your farm equipment coverage, from tractors, combines, machinery used to haul your equipment around, irrigation things like well pumps and center pivots, even farm office equipment and miscellaneous tools are also included. And you need to make sure you understand all of these parts of the equipment coverage so you make sure you're properly covered and you have everything included that you need. Now, one very important part to understand in your equipment coverage is the difference between scheduled and blanket. Your scheduled coverage is going to be where you individually itemize each piece of equipment in your policy. One great thing about this is if you're budget minded and you're really trying to pinch pennies on your insurance coverage, you can see every item, see how much it's costing you to be covered, and there's really no questions asked when you look at your coverage, all right? This tractor, this combine, this well pump, they're all listed here specifically, and this is all I have covered, and I know how much my premium is, and there's no questions asked. On the same point, a lot of times during your policy year, you may pick up some random equipment. You may buy a new tractor, you may have some corn seed stored on your farm for a time period. If it's not mentioned in your coverage, then it won't be covered. Well, that's where the blanket coverage comes in, where it gives you a little bit more flexibility, where as long as you meet the co-insurance qualifications where you have your 80% coverage of the total amount of equipment on the farm, if you add a new piece of equipment or if you have some corn seed stored for a period of time, it'll still be included in your coverage. And if something happens, your barn burns down and you lose your $20,000 worth of corn seed, well, that's also going to be covered under your blanket coverage. Another important part to think about between your scheduled and blanket coverage is peak season coverage. Now, there may be some times of the year where you have more equipment on your farm or more seed on your farm or pieces of equipment that you never have any other time of the year. Well, you can go through and list out those peak seasons and which pieces of equipment, and you can pay that higher premium just for that time of the year instead of having to pay for the entire year. So it saves you a little bit of money and you make sure that you're properly covered and fully insured for that equipment while it's there. Equipment breakdown coverage is another beneficial piece that you could add to your equipment coverage. Now, what this does is any piece of equipment that you have covered under your equipment policy will be covered with its own deductible in the case of any mechanical breakdowns or in the case that you need any repairs done during the policy period. It's very inexpensive and it can be very useful in the case of something unexpected. Another thing to think about is coverage for equipment that is rented or borrowed. Now, I know a lot of farmers can't possibly own all the equipment that they need throughout the growing season to get all their stuff done. So a lot of farmers will borrow or rent certain pieces of property that they only need for certain times of the year. So you can add this endorsement onto your policy and it will cover fully those pieces of equipment that you are renting or borrowing for the time period that you have them. Another very important part of your equipment coverage that all farmers need to think about is miscellaneous tools. Now, there's not a farmer that I know of that hasn't over time collected small tractor implements, small nuts and bolts and small hand tools and power tools, and they usually have them all set into a barn to the side. They don't really think about it, but if you really look at it over years, it's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment that is very useful to their farming operation and would also be very detrimental if, in the case of a total loss, it would cost a lot of money and a lot of time to try to keep up with that, come up with that money to rebuy all of those small tools. So if you can get with your insurance agent at your policy renewal, go through it, kind of go through and make a list of what you've got in there, get an idea of the amount of coverage you would need for those miscellaneous tools. All of that will be covered. So in the case of a disaster where you lose your machine storage shed, not only will your machine storage shed, which is hopefully covered properly, be replaced, but so will all those miscellaneous tools that it's taken you years to acquire. So you really need to think about that and discuss that with your agent at your next renewal and make sure that you're not missing any of that equipment. All right, guys, thanks again. I hope this video was helpful in continuing to break down the Farm Insurance 101 video from earlier. I'll continue to make these videos and continue to break down each individual part. Look forward to making some more for you guys in the future. Be sure to thank a local farmer, and we'll see you soon.